"It is you, Mrs. Vance." Julian's voice came out as a hoarse, broken whisper, while his face paled until it turned almost grayish. His hands gripped the doorframe as if he needed to hold on to keep from falling. Behind him, I heard Kate's stifled gasp. "Mom, you saved us." My daughter ran toward me with her arms outstretched, her messy hair falling over her tear-stained face. But I took a step back. A small but firm step. I raised a hand between us, stopping her dead in her tracks. Then I smiled. It was a cold, sad smile, filled with a power I had never felt before. "I did not come to save you," I said in a calm voice. "I came to take back what is mine." I held up the keys to the apartment so they could see them clearly. The very same keys to apartment 4B. The same apartment where, exactly 2 years ago, they had left me on the street with 3 suitcases and a shattered heart. "I bought this apartment at the foreclosure auction 3 days ago," I continued, watching as the color drained from Kate's face as well. "I paid $58,000. Money I saved over these last 2 years. But let me tell you how I got here, because this story does not begin today. It begins much earlier, on that terrible day that changed my life forever." My hands were shaking now as I held those keys in front of them. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every beat reminded me of all the pain, all the humiliation, all the road I had traveled to reach this moment. I had walked up those stairs just 5 minutes ago with a steady stride, but with my legs trembling. The building remained the same, with that worn beige paint on the walls and the smell of mildew rising from the basement. Every step brought me closer to the moment I had imagined hundreds of times over these 2 years. In the sleepless nights, in my small rented room, I wondered what I would feel if I ever saw Kate and Julian again. I imagined screaming everything I never got to say. I imagined crying, or simply turning my back on them without a word. But now that the moment had arrived, I discovered something surprising within myself. I did not feel rage. I did not feel the burning desire for revenge that I had fed during the first few months. What I felt was something much deeper and colder. I felt the quiet weight of justice. I felt the absolute certainty that I had done the right thing by getting up, by rebuilding myself, by not staying put waiting for their regret. When I arrived in front of the door of 4B, I paused. I could hear voices inside. Kate's high-pitched voice sounded upset, almost hysterical. Julian's deep voice was trying to calm her but sounded tense, worried. They were arguing about money, about the bank, about the eviction notice. They did not know who had bought the apartment at the auction. They had no idea that their salvation or their doom was on the other side of that door. I took a deep breath. I adjusted my cream-colored blouse, the one I had bought especially for this occasion. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed revenge or triumph. Just an elegant, discreet blouse that said without words that I had taken care of myself, that I had learned to value myself again. I rang the doorbell. The familiar sound resonated inside the apartment, and the voices stopped abruptly. I heard hurried footsteps. I heard Julian say something in a low voice. I heard the noise of the security chain being removed. And then the door opened. Julian appeared in the doorway with disheveled hair, in a t-shirt and pajama pants at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. His tired eyes looked at me without recognizing me at first. Then I saw them widen. I saw his mouth open slightly. I saw how all the color vanished from his face. His lips moved, but no sound came out for several eternal seconds. And then came that moment I will never forget. "It is you, Mrs. Vance." Behind him, I heard Kate ask impatiently who it was. When Julian did not answer, she appeared at the door as well. My daughter. My only daughter. The girl I had carried in my womb, whom I had raised alone after her father died, who had been my reason for living for so many years. Now she had unwashed hair tied back in a messy ponytail. Her face showed deep dark circles. She was wearing old, stained clothes. When she saw me, she let out a stifled scream and covered her mouth with both hands. "Mom, you saved us. I knew you would come. I knew you would not abandon us." And then, without any shame, without any glimmer of awareness about the terrible irony of the situation, she ran toward me with her arms outstretched. But I took a step back. That simple gesture stopped her in her tracks. The desperate smile on her face began to fade as she really looked at me. As she saw my calm expression, my dry eyes, my upright posture, as she noticed the folder under my arm and the keys in my hand. "Good afternoon, Kate, Julian." My voice came out firmer than I expected. Colder, too. "I assume you received the notice from the bank regarding the sale of the property." I saw them exchange glances of confusion. I saw Julian furrow his brow, trying to process what was happening. I saw Kate looking at the keys in my hand with a mixture of hope and growing fear. "Yes, we received it," Julian said slowly, with caution. "They gave us 30 days to vacate. The bank sold the apartment at auction for our debts." "But Mom, listen, we need to talk to the new owner. We need to ask him for more time. We need to explain our situation." Then I smiled. It was a small, sad smile, but also full of a power I had never felt before. "You do not need to look very far. The new owner is standing in front of you." I held up the keys so they could see them well. "I bought this apartment 3 days ago. I paid $58,000 at the judicial auction. Money I saved during these 2 years, working as an event decorator, making floral arrangements, sewing tablecloths for parties. Money I gathered living in a room of 10 by 12 feet, eating rice and eggs most days, walking in the rain to save on bus fare." The silence that followed was so dense, I could almost touch it. Julian had gone completely motionless. Kate had started shaking her head, slowly at first, then faster. "No, no, no, no. Mom, no. You came to help us, right? You bought the apartment to save us, so they would not kick us out on the street, right, Mom? Tell me yes, please." Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "Mom, I am so sorry. I am sorry for everything that happened. I am sorry for not being stronger. I am sorry for letting Julian. I am so sorry." But I was no longer listening to her apologies. My eyes had drifted toward the interior of the apartment, toward the living room I could see from the threshold. And what I saw transported me instantly back 2 years, to that terrible day that had marked the lowest point of my life. The day my daughter had betrayed me in the cruelest way I could imagine. 2 years ago, that same apartment was my home. I had lived there for 15 years, ever since I was widowed. Kate had insisted so much that I move in with her. "Mom, you cannot stay alone in that big house. Come live with us. Chloe needs you. I need you." And I, who had just lost the love of my life, who felt so lost and so alone, accepted without thinking twice. At first, everything was wonderful. I helped take care of Chloe, who was then just 7 years old. I cooked, I cleaned, I felt useful again. Julian worked at a sales company and earned good money, but it was not enough for all the expenses. So, I contributed. I paid for half the groceries every month. I paid the electricity and water bills. With my Social Security check, which was modest but decent, I helped in every way I could. Kate worked part-time as a secretary, and I was in charge of picking Chloe up from school. I helped her with homework. I read her stories before bed. I was happy being a grandmother, being a mother again, feeling like part of a family. But over the years, something began to change. Julian started treating me differently. Small comments at first. "Mrs. Vance, could you eat in your room today? We have important guests. Or would it be better if you did not come out in your robe in the mornings? Do you not think? What will the neighbors think?" I swallowed the humiliation because I did not want to cause problems, because I thought they were just his quirks. What would happen? Because I loved my daughter and my granddaughter more than my own pride. Then, 3 years ago, Julian received a major promotion at his job. Suddenly, he started earning double, triple. They began buying new things. A huge television, élégant fourniture, designer clothes. Julian grew a groomed beard and started wearing expensive suits. Kate started going to beauty salons and buying handbags that cost more than my entire monthly pension. And I became a nuisance. "Mom, could you not hang your clothes to dry on the balcony? It just looks very ugly from the street," Kate would tell me with shame in her eyes. "Mom, when Julian's friends and his boss come over, you had better stay in your room, okay? It is just that they are very particular." Particular. That word hurt me more than any direct insult. I had ceased to be the mother, the grandmother, the member of the family. I had become the poor old woman living on charity in her successful daughter's apartment. One day I heard Julian talking on the phone with his brother in the living room. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch, and he did not know I could hear him. "No, brother, we cannot go to that restaurant. What am I going to do with the old lady? I cannot take her, and I cannot leave her alone because then Kate feels guilty. I am tired of having to plan everything around the mother-in-law. We are not young anymore, you know? We want to live our lives, not take care of the elderly." Elderly. I looked at myself in the reflection of the kitchen window. I was 70 years old, but I looked good for my age. I stayed active. I took care of my appearance. I was no burden. But to Julian, I was an old piece of furniture taking up space. That night I spoke with Kate. "Daughter, if I am a problem, I can look for a place to live. I do not want to cause you any trouble." I saw the panic in her eyes for a second, but then she hid it with a forced smile. "Mom, do not say foolish things. This is your home. You are no problem." But her voice did not sound convincing, and I knew she was lying. Things got worse when Julian started bringing clients home. Elegant dinners, expensive wines, conversations about business and investments. I was forbidden to leave my room during those meetings, as if I were a disgrace, as if my simple presence could ruin his new image of a successful man. One afternoon, Chloe came to my room crying. She was already 19 years old and studying at the university. "Grandma," I heard Dad talking to Mom. "He says you have to leave. He says they can no longer support you. He says they need the room to make a home office." My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "And what did your mother say?" Chloe lowered her gaze. "She said nothing, Grandma. She just stayed silent." My daughter's silence hurt more than any cruel word Julian could have said. That night I could not sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, thinking about what I had done wrong. I had been a good mother. I had raised Kate alone after her father's death. I had worked 2 jobs to give her an education. I had sacrificed my dreams, my desires, my entire youth for her. And this was what I received in return? A week later, the day arrived that would change my life forever. It was a Friday afternoon. I had gone to the grocery store to buy things for dinner. I was carrying 2 heavy bags in my 70-year-old hands. I walked up the stairs slowly, stopping on each floor to catch my breath. When I opened the apartment door, I found something I never expected to see. My things were packed. 3 old suitcases in the middle of the living room, my clothes folded hastily, my photographs stuffed into plastic bags, my shoes in a cardboard box. Julian was standing next to the suitcases with his arms crossed. Kate was sitting on the sofa, looking at the floor, twisting a handkerchief in her hands. "What is this?" My voice came out barely as a whisper. "Mrs. Vance, I think it is time we had this conversation with you." Julian spoke in that tone he used to fire employees at his job. Cold, professional, without emotion. "Kate and I have decided that we need our space. You have lived here for many years and we appreciate it, but now we have other plans for the apartment." The grocery bags fell from my hands. "Kate." I looked at my daughter. "Daughter, look at me." But she did not look up. Tears were running down her cheeks, but her mouth remained closed. "Kate, please, tell me this is not happening." Julian took a step forward. "Look, Mrs. Vance, we do not want to make this harder than necessary. We have taken out some money for you. $500. It is enough for you to find a room somewhere. Kate has a friend who knows of a cheap boarding house near downtown. $500. 15 years of help, of love, of dedication were worth $500. You cannot do this." My voice began to tremble. "This is my home. I have paid bills here. I have taken care of this family. And we appreciate it," said Julian with that fake smile I hated so much. "But legally, this apartment is in our name. You have no right to it. So please, take your things and leave without making a scene." I turned toward Kate again. "Daughter, look me in the eyes and tell me that this is what you want." Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her lower lip was trembling. "I am sorry, Mom," she whispered. "But Julian is right. We need the space. You are going to be fine. You have always been strong." I felt as if I had been hollowed out inside. "Where is Chloe?" I asked. "She is on a study trip," Julian responded quickly. "She returns in 2 weeks. We thought it would be better to do this while she is not here. You know how sentimental she is. Coward. They waited until my granddaughter was not there so they could kick me out without witnesses. Please. My voice broke. Please, do not do this to me. I have nowhere to go. I have no one else. Julian looked at his watch impatiently. Mrs. Vance, it is already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We need you to leave now. We have an important dinner tonight, and we need to prepare the apartment. An important dinner. I was being kicked out of my home so they could have an important dinner. I looked at Kate one last time. I searched her eyes for some trace of the little girl she had been. The girl who hugged me when she had nightmares. The girl who told me I was the best mom in the world. The girl who promised she would always take care of me when I was old. But that girl no longer existed. It is okay, I said finally. My voice sounded hollow, empty. I will go. I took the first suitcase. It was so heavy I almost fell. Julian did not move to help me. Kate remained sitting on the sofa, crying in silence but doing nothing to stop this. I dragged the first suitcase to the door. Then I went back for the second, and then for the third. 3 suitcases with my entire life inside. When I was in the hallway with my things, I turned one last time. Kate, I just want you to know something. When your father died, I could have given up. I could have let the state take you to an orphanage while I worked. But I did not. I worked 2 jobs. I slept 4 hours a night. I ate once a day so you could eat 3 times. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, was for you. Kate sobbed louder but said nothing. I hope that when you are old, your daughter treats you better than you are treating me today. Julian began to close the door. Goodbye, Mrs. Vance. We wish you the best. And the door closed. I stood there in the hallway, staring at that closed door. I could hear Kate crying on the other side. I could hear Julian telling her to calm down, that it had been necessary, that everything would be fine. Slowly, I went down the stairs, dragging my suitcases one by one. Every step was torture. My knees hurt, my back hurt, but nothing hurt as much as my heart. When I reached the entrance of the building, I simply sat on the sidewalk. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to call. I stayed there sitting with my 3 suitcases, watching people pass by. Everyone was in a hurry. Everyone was going somewhere. No one looked at me. To them, I was just another poor old woman sitting on the street. It began to get dark. It was cold. It was March and the wind was blowing hard. I wrapped myself in my thin sweater, but it was not enough. I began to shiver. I thought about calling an old friend, but I realized that during those 15 years living with Kate, I had lost contact with almost everyone. Julian always complained when I went out. Where are you going, Mrs. Vance? You should not stay to take care of Chloe? Little by little, I had stopped accepting invitations. I had stopped calling. I had isolated myself completely. Now I was totally alone. I cried. I cried sitting there on that cold sidewalk as the night fell over me. I cried for all the lost years. I cried for the daughter I had loved more than my own life. I cried for the grandmother who would no longer have the privilege of watching her granddaughter grow up. Ma'am, are you okay? I looked up. A woman of about 60 years old was looking at me with concern. She was carrying grocery bags in her hands. I am fine, I lied. She looked at my suitcases, my face swollen from crying so much, my defeated posture. No, you are not fine. Do you have a place to sleep tonight? I shook my head. The woman sighed deeply and then extended her hand to me. Come with me. I cannot leave you here on the street. My name is Barbara. I live 2 blocks from here. I cannot accept. I do not know you. I do not want to be a bother. Nonsense. No one deserves to sleep on the street. Come on. My apartment is small, but I have a sofa where you can rest tonight. Tomorrow we will see what we can do. I did not have the strength to argue. I took my lightest suitcase and followed Barbara. She, despite her own bags, insisted on helping me with another suitcase. Barbara's apartment was tiny. A living room that also served as a dining room, a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a small bedroom. But it was clean and warm. And she received me with a kindness I had not experienced in years. Sit down. I am going to make you some hot tea. I sat on the sofa, and simply let myself collapse. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally shattered. Barbara returned with 2 cups of steaming tea and sat across from me. "Do you want to talk about it?" And so I told her everything. I told her about Kate, about Julian, about the 15 years living with them, about how they had kicked me out as if I were garbage. Barbara listened in silence, shaking her head with sadness. "My son did something similar 5 years ago," she said finally. "His wife never liked me. When they had their second baby, they decided they needed my room. They gave me 2 weeks to find another place. Since then, I have lived here alone. My son visits me once a year at Christmas, if he remembers." There was so much pain in her eyes that I recognized immediately. It was the same pain I felt. "How did you get over it?" I asked. "I do not know if I got over it," she admitted. "But I learned to live with it. I learned that we cannot force people to love us, not even if they are our own blood. I learned that sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we got by birth." That night I slept on Barbara's sofa. It was the first of many nights where I cried in silence, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had reached this point. The next morning, Barbara made me breakfast. "You can stay here a week," she told me. "But afterwards you will have to look for something more permanent. I can barely handle my own expenses, and this place is very small for 2 people. I understand. And thank you. I do not know how to repay you for your kindness. You do not owe me anything. Just promise me that when you are better, you will help someone else who needs it. That is how kindness works. You pay it forward, not back." During that week, I looked for rooms for rent. With my widow's pension of $650 a month, my options were very limited. Most decent places cost more than I could pay. The ones that were within my budget were horrible. Rooms without windows, with mold on the walls, in dangerous neighborhoods. Finally, I found a room in a shared house. It cost $250 a month, plus utilities. It was tiny, barely fitting a twin bed and a small wardrobe. I shared a bathroom with 3 other people. The kitchen was communal, and I had to put my name on everything I bought so they would not steal it, but it was a roof over my head. I moved there with my 3 suitcases and began the hardest part, rebuilding my life from zero. The first few months were the hardest. I woke up every morning feeling a terrible emptiness in my chest. I missed Chloe with a physical pain. I missed cooking for my family. I missed feeling useful and needed. But more than anything, I missed the daughter I thought I had, the daughter who, in reality, never existed. I spent the first few weeks in that tiny room practically without going out. I stayed lying on that narrow bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, wondering if it was worth going on. I was 70 years old. Why rebuild a life at this age? For whom? Barbara came to visit me every 2 or 3 days. She would knock on the door and come in with a container of homemade food. "Eleanor, you have to eat, you have to go out. You cannot stay locked in here waiting to die." "And what is the point of going out?" I answered her. "I have nowhere to go. I have no one. You have yourself, and that has to be enough." But I did not feel like enough. I felt empty, useless, discarded. One day, Barbara arrived with news. "Eleanor, a friend of mine organizes events, weddings, birthdays, baptisms. She needs someone to help her with floral decorations. It does not pay much, but it is something. Are you interested?" "I know nothing about floral decoration," I replied without enthusiasm. "But you know how to sew, right? You told me you used to make curtains and tablecloths." It was true. Before getting married, I had worked in a small tailor shop. Later, when Kate was little, I sewed clothes for her and for the neighborhood children to earn extra money. But I had stopped doing it more than 15 years ago. "That was a long time ago, Barbara. The hands do not forget. Come with me tomorrow. Just meet my friend. If you do not like it, you do not have to accept." The next day, Barbara practically dragged me out of my room. She took me to a small office downtown where I met Sarah, an energetic woman of about 50, who spoke incredibly fast and gestured with her hands the whole time. "So you are the lady Barbara recommended to me? Look, I need tablecloths for a wedding this Saturday. 50 individual tablecloths, nothing complicated, just basic hems. Can you do them in 4 days?" I do not know if I can. I will pay you $150 for the complete job. I already have the fabric. I just need the labor. $150. It was almost a quarter of my monthly pension for just 4 days of work. I will do it, I said before I could regret it. Sarah smiled widely. Perfect. Come, I will show you the storage room where I have the fabric and the sewing machine you can use. Those 4 days I sewed like I had not done in decades. My fingers hurt. My back hurt from being hunched over the machine. But there was something healing in the process. Something meditative. Every stitch was a thought I let go of. Every finished tablecloth was a small achievement. When I delivered the 50 tablecloths, Sarah inspected them carefully. They are perfect. Better than I expected. Will you be available for more jobs? And so began my return to life. Sarah called me every week with new projects. Tablecloths, napkins, chair covers. The work was irregular and the pay modest, but it was mine. It was something I did with my own hands, with my own effort. Little by little, I began to leave my room more often. I went to buy fabrics. I visited Barbara. I walked through the nearby park in the afternoons. And slowly, very slowly, the emptiness in my chest began to fill with something else. It was not happiness yet, but neither was it that devastating pain. It was something in between. It was survival. 3 months after starting to work for Sarah, she made me a proposal. Eleanor, I have more and more orders for floral arrangements, in addition to the linens. I do not know anything about flowers. Would you be interested in learning? I know someone who teaches a basic floral arrangement course. It lasts 2 weeks. If you pay half, I will pay the other half. And afterwards, we work together on events. Why would you do that for me? I asked, suspicious. I no longer believed in selfless kindness. Because it is good business, Sarah replied honestly. If you learn, I can offer more services. We both win. It is that simple. I accepted. The floral arrangement course was revealing. I discovered I had a talent for it. Something about the combination of colors, the way of balancing the flowers, came naturally to me. The instructor, a Japanese woman named Aiko, complimented me constantly. You have a very good eye, Mrs. Vance. Very good sense of balance. For the first time in years, I felt proud of myself. After the course, I began making floral arrangements for Sarah's events. At first, they were simple things, basic centerpieces, small bouquets. But with each event, I improved. I experimented. I dared to do more elaborate things. One day, a client saw me working on the decoration for her birthday party. Who made these arrangements? They are beautiful. I made them, ma'am, I replied shyly. Do you have business cards? I would like to hire you directly for my daughter's wedding. I did not have cards. I did not have my own business. I only worked for Sarah. But that question planted a seed in my mind. Why couldn't I have my own small business? That night I spoke with Barbara about the idea. It is risky, she admitted. But you have talent, Eleanor, and you already have some clients who know you. Why not try? Because I am 70 years old. Because I know nothing about business. Because I do not have money to invest. You are 70 years old. You are not dead. And you do not need a huge investment to start. You just need to register as a freelancer and make some simple cards. The rest comes with time. Barbara helped me with the paperwork. We went together to the business registration office. I paid the $50 for the basic license. I designed my own cards on a computer at an internet cafe and sent them to print, 500 cards for $20. Eleanor Vance. Floral decoration for events. When I had those cards in my hands, something changed inside me. I was no longer just the old woman who had been kicked out by her daughter. I was a businesswoman. I was someone with a purpose. I spoke with Sarah honestly. I want to start working on my own. But I do not want you to think I am ungrateful. You gave me an opportunity when I needed it most. Sarah laughed. Eleanor, I knew this would happen eventually. You have too much talent to work only for me. Let's do something. I will keep calling you for big jobs where I need extra help. And if I have a client who wants only flowers, I will refer them to you. Deal. Deal. The first few months with my own business were difficult. Some months I earned barely $100 extra on top of my pension. Other months I earned $300 or $400. But every dollar I earned was a victory. I started saving obsessively. I ate as cheaply as possible. Rice, eggs, beans, potatoes. I bought clothes only at thrift stores. I walked instead of taking the bus whenever I could. Every dollar I saved went straight into a cookie tin I hid under my bed. 6 months after starting my business, I counted the money in the tin. I had $1,200 saved. It was the first time in my life I had my own savings. Money no one could take from me. Money I had earned with my own effort. I cried that night. But this time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pride. A year after Kate kicked me out, I received a call. It was Chloe. "Grandma? Grandma? Is it you?" My heart almost stopped upon hearing her voice. "Chloe, my baby, how did you get my number?" I asked Aunt Barbara to give it to me. "Grandma, why did you leave? Why didn't you tell me anything? Mom says you decided to go live alone, but I do not believe her. I know something happened." And then I told her the truth. I told her everything. How her parents had kicked me out. How I had slept on the street that first night. How I had to rebuild my life from zero. Chloe was crying on the other end of the line. "Grandma, I am so sorry. I did not know. If I had been here, I would not have let that happen. Can I come visit you?" "Of course, my love. You will always be welcome." Chloe came to visit me the next day. When she saw my tiny room, her eyes filled with tears. "Grandma, this is terrible. How can you live here? It is what I can afford, honey. But I am fine. Really." We spent the whole afternoon talking. Chloe told me that she had fought with her parents when she found out the truth, that she had stopped speaking to them for weeks, that she had moved into a student dorm so she wouldn't have to live with them. "Grandma, I am going to get a job. I am going to help you. I am going to get you out of this place." "No, Chloe. You have to concentrate on your studies. I am fine, really. Look." I showed her my business cards. I told her about my floral decoration business. I showed her photos of some events I had decorated. "Grandma, this is incredible. You did all this." The pride in her voice filled me with a warmth I had not felt in a long time. Chloe began to visit me regularly. Every 2 weeks she came to my room and we spent hours talking. She told me about her classes, her friends, her dreams. I told her about my clients, my projects, my small achievements. She became my connection to hope, my reminder that not everything was lost, that there was still love in my life, even if it came from where I least expected it. "And your mom?" I asked her one day. "How is she?" Chloe sighed. "Not very good, Grandma. Dad lost his job 3 months ago. The company made massive cuts, and he was one of those laid off. Mom had to go back to working full-time, but she does not earn enough. They are behind on the apartment payments. The bank is sending them warning letters." I felt a twinge in my chest. It was not satisfaction at their suffering. It was something more complex. It was the realization that life has its own way of serving justice. "Mom asks about you all the time," Chloe continued. "She cries a lot. She says she made the worst mistake of her life." And what do you answer her? I tell her she is right, that she made the worst mistake of her life, and that now she has to live with the consequences. My granddaughter had grown so much. She was no longer the naive teenager I remembered. She had become a woman with principles, with a backbone. "Chloe, listen to me well. I do not want you to stop talking to your mother because of me. She is still your mother. But Grandma, no, listen to me. The mistakes she made with me are between her and me. You have the right to have a relationship with your mother if you so wish. Do not let my pain become your burden." Chloe hugged me tight. "How can you be so good after everything they did to you?" "I am not good, honey. I am just tired of carrying hate in my heart. It weighs too much." But even though I told Chloe that, the truth was more complicated. Yes, there was hate in me. There was resentment. There were nights when I woke up with my jaw clenched, reliving that day they kicked me out. There were moments when I fantasized about Kate and Julian losing everything, about them suffering as I had suffered. And then I felt terrible for having those thoughts. Time kept passing. My floral decoration business grew slowly but steadily. I got some regular clients. A company that did corporate events started hiring me monthly. A church asked me to decorate their special celebrations. A year and a half after starting, I was earning between $500 and $700 extra a month on top of my pension. It was not a fortune, but it was enough to live with some dignity. I moved to a better room. Bigger, with its own bathroom, in a safer neighborhood. It cost $400 a month, but it was worth every penny. It had a large window that let the sun in. It had space for a small table where I could work on my floral arrangements. For the first time in almost 2 years, I felt like a human being again, not just like a survivor. I met Benjamin during this time. He was a lawyer in his 50s who had hired my services to decorate his daughter's graduation party. He arrived early at the hall and found me working. "You are the decorator." "Yes, sir." "Eleanor Vance." "Benjamin Castle. Nice to meet you. Look, I have a question. Is your business formally registered? Do you have all your papers in order?" My heart skipped a beat. Had I done something wrong? "I have my freelance license." "Is there a problem?" "No, there is no problem. It is just that I am specializing my practice in helping small business owners. I like to make sure people who are starting out do it the right way from the beginning. It avoids a lot of headaches later." "I cannot afford a lawyer, sir. I am not offering you my paid services. I am offering you a free 30-minute consultation. If after that you want to hire me, fine. If not, at least you will know you are doing things correctly." I accepted the consultation out of curiosity more than anything else. Benjamin reviewed my papers and gave me several useful tips. He explained about taxes, about how to protect myself legally, about how to formalize contracts with clients. "You have a good business here, Mrs. Vance. With a little more structure, it could grow significantly." "I am not looking to grow significantly. I am only looking to live with dignity." Benjamin smiled with understanding. "That is the best reason to have a business." Benjamin became a sort of mentor to me. He did not charge me for his advice. He said he liked helping senior entrepreneurs because he felt it was an underserved group. His own mother had started a baking business at 65, so he understood the challenges. With his help, I formalized my business better. I opened a separate bank account for my business income. I began keeping more organized records. I learned to make proper invoices, and I kept saving. Every dollar I could, I put away. No longer in a tin under the bed, but in that bank account. Seeing it grow month by month gave me a satisfaction I cannot describe. 2 years after Kate kicked me out, I had almost $30,000 saved. $30,000 I had earned with my own work, with my own 72-year-old hands. It was more money than I had possessed in my entire life. One day, Barbara came to visit me with a strange expression on her face. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something, but I do not know if I should." "What is it?" "I saw an announcement in the paper. The bank is auctioning off several apartments for unpaid debts. One of them is your daughter's apartment, 4B in the building where you lived." My heart began to beat faster. "When is the auction?" "Next Friday. The base price is $55,000. It will probably sell for $60 or $65. $55,000. I had $30,000 saved. "Barbara, I need to ask you a favor. A very big favor." That same afternoon I went to see Benjamin. "I need a loan. I need $30,000 more than what I have saved." Benjamin looked at me with surprise. "Mrs. Vance, that is a lot of money. What do you need it for?" I told him about the apartment, about my daughter, about everything that had happened. Benjamin remained silent for a long moment. "I understand why you want to do this, but I have to ask you, are you sure? Is this revenge, or is it justice?" "I do not know," I admitted honestly. "Maybe it is both things. Maybe it is neither. I just know I need to close that circle. I need to stand in that apartment as the owner, not as the beggar pleading to stay. And if you get the apartment, what will you do? Will you kick them out on the street like they kicked you out? I do not know yet. But I need to have that option. I need to have that power." Benjamin nodded slowly. "I cannot lend you $30,000 directly, but I can help you apply for a bank loan. With your established business and your savings as collateral, you have good chances of getting it approved. Let's work on that. The following days were a whirlwind. Benjamin helped me prepare all the documentation. We went to the bank together. I presented my bank statements, my income history, my projections. On Thursday afternoon, the bank approved the loan, $30,000 at 8% annual interest to be paid in 10 years. Now I had $60,000 available. Friday arrived, the day of the auction. Barbara insisted on accompanying me. Benjamin also came as my legal representative. The auction took place in a cold, gray room at the courthouse. There were about 20 people there, mostly investors in expensive suits and leather briefcases. I was sitting in the back row, in my best dress, my hands trembling on my purse. Barbara squeezed my hand. "Breathe. Eleanor, everything is going to be fine." But I was not so sure. What was I doing? Was I about to spend all my savings and go into debt for the next 10 years just to get an apartment back? Just to prove a point? The auctioneer started with other properties first. I watched how the process worked. People raised their numbered paddles. The prices went up quickly. Some apartments sold for double the base price. Finally, the turn came for apartment 4B, 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bathroom, living room, kitchen, in the Jasmine building. Base price, $55,000. Who offers $55,000? A man in a gray suit raised his paddle. $55,000. Does anyone offer $56,000? My hand went up by itself, holding the paddle Benjamin had given me. $56,000. $57,000. The man in gray raised his paddle again. $57,000. $58,000. I raised my paddle again. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The man in gray looked at me, sizing me up. An old woman of 72 in a simple dress. He probably thought I didn't have much money. He raised his paddle once more. $58,000. $59,000. I raised my paddle. Benjamin had advised me not to show emotion, to keep my face neutral. The man in gray frowned. This time he waited a moment before raising his paddle. $59,000. $60,000. I raised my paddle without hesitation. $60,000. Now I had used my entire budget. If the man offered more, I would have to withdraw. The man in gray studied me for what seemed like an eternity. Then he looked at his papers, did some mental calculations, and shook his head. He leaned back in his seat without raising the paddle. $60,000 going once. $60,000 going twice. The gavel fell. Sold for $60,000 to the lady with paddle number 17. Barbara screamed with joy and hugged me. I simply sat there, stunned by what I had just done. I had bought the apartment where I had been humiliated, the apartment from which I had been kicked out like a dog. Now it was mine. The paperwork took 3 days. Signing papers, transferring funds, registering the property. Benjamin took care of everything. When I finally had the keys in my hand, I sat in his office and simply looked at them. "Do you regret it?" Benjamin asked gently. "I do not know yet. Ask me in a month. When will you go to the apartment?" "Tomorrow." "I want to go tomorrow. Do you want me to accompany you?" "No. This is something I have to do alone." That night I could not sleep. I mentally rehearsed what I would say. How would I react? What would I do when I saw Kate and Julian again? Would I scream? Would I cry? Would I stay silent? I did not know. The next morning I dressed carefully. The cream-colored blouse I had bought for the occasion. Dark pants. Comfortable but elegant shoes. I put on makeup for the first time in months. I fixed my hair with care. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a different woman from the one I had been 2 years ago. This woman had a straight back. This woman had her own light. This woman needed no one's approval. I took a taxi to the building. I did not want to arrive sweaty after walking. I wanted to arrive with dignity. The building looked more deteriorated than I remembered. The paint was peeling more. There was new graffiti on the walls of the first floor. But for me, that place was full of ghosts. I walked up the stairs slowly, savoring every step. This time I was not carrying heavy suitcases. This time I was carrying keys and documents that gave me all the power. When I arrived in front of the door of 4B, I paused. I could hear voices inside. Kate sounded hysterical. Julian was trying to calm her, but his voice also sounded tense, worried. I do not understand how we are going to find another place in 30 days. No one is going to rent to us with our credit history. What are we going to do, Julian? Where are we going to go? We will find something. There are always options. Options? What options? We are ruined. We have no savings. We can barely pay for food. And now we have to move. I rang the doorbell. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. I heard slow steps approaching the door. I heard the sound of the peephole sliding open. A stifled gasp, then nothing for several seconds. Finally, the door opened, and there was Julian, with his hair disheveled, in sleepwear at 3 p.m, his face paling until it turned ashen as his eyes recognized me. "It is you, Mrs. Vance." His voice came out broken, incredulous. His legs seemed to weaken, and he had to cling to the doorframe. Behind him appeared Kate, and when she saw me, her reaction was even more dramatic. She brought both hands to her mouth, her eyes widening with a mixture of shock and desperate hope. "Mom," and then she ran toward me with her arms outstretched. "Mom, you saved us. I knew you would come. I knew you would not abandon us. But I took that step back that stopped her in her tracks. I raised my hand between us, firm but not aggressive. I saw how the hope on her face began to transform into confusion, into growing fear. "Good afternoon, Kate." "Julian." My voice sounded colder than I had planned. Stronger, too. "I assume you received the notice from the bank regarding the sale of the property." I saw them exchange confused glances. I saw Julian furrow his brow, his brain working slowly to process what was happening. "Yes, we received it," Julian said cautiously. "They gave us 30 days to vacate. The bank sold the apartment at auction for our debts. But Mom, we need to talk to the new owner. We need to ask him for more time. We need to explain our situation." I smiled then. A small, sad smile, but full of power. "You do not need to look very far. The new owner is standing in front of you." I held up the keys so they could see them clearly. I saw how both of them looked at those keys as if they were an apparition. "I bought this apartment 3 days ago at the foreclosure auction. I paid $60,000. Money I saved during these 2 years working day and night. Money I gathered living in a tiny room, eating the minimum, sacrificing every small luxury. The silence that fell over us was so dense I could feel it pressing against my skin. Julian had gone completely motionless, as if someone had pressed pause on his life. Kate began to shake her head, slowly at first, then faster. "No, no, Mom. No, you came to help us, right? You bought the apartment to save us, so they wouldn't kick us out. Please, tell me yes." Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Tears that 2 years ago would have destroyed me. But now I watched them with a strange emotional distance. "Mom, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I am sorry for everything that happened. I am sorry for not being stronger. I am sorry for letting Julian. Please, Mom, may I come in?" I asked calmly. "This is my apartment, after all. I would like to see the condition it is in." Julian stepped aside automatically, like a robot. Kate backed away, her hands still on her mouth, her eyes red and swollen. I entered the apartment that had been my home for 15 years. And what I saw shocked me. The place was a disaster. The elegant furniture Julian had bought with such pride was worn and stained. The huge television he showed off to his guests had a cracked screen in one corner. The walls that were once immaculate now showed watermarks and peeling paint. There were boxes stacked everywhere, some half-packed, others simply full of junk. The apartment smelled stale, of defeat, of broken dreams. I walked slowly through the living room, touching surfaces I had once cleaned with my own hands. I ran my fingers along the shelf where I used to put fresh flowers every week. I looked toward the balcony where Julian had forbidden me to hang my clothes. "How did it come to this?" I asked finally, my voice cutting the tense silence. Julian cleared his throat. He tried to regain some of his old arrogance, but his voice came out weak, defensive. "The economy is tough, Mrs. Vance. I was fired without notice. Then I couldn't find another job at the same level. I had to accept low-paying temporary jobs. The debts piled up. The bank did not want to negotiate. It was not our fault. It was not your fault, I repeated softly. None of this was your fault. I walked toward the window and looked out at the street. The same street where I had sat crying with my suitcases 2 years ago. When you had money, I continued without turning around. Did you remember me? Did you ever think about calling me to apologize? To see how I was? If I had a place to sleep? If I had food to eat? No one answered. I turned to look at them. Kate was crying silently, tears running down her cheeks uncontrollably. Julian was looking at the floor, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Julian, a question, I said with a calm voice. Where are all those important friends who came to your elegant dinners? Those clients you rubbed elbows with? Why are none of them helping you now? Julian clenched his jaw but did not answer. I will tell you why. Because those people were never your friends. They were business contacts who disappeared the moment you ceased to be useful to them. That is what happens when you build your life on appearances instead of substance. I did not come here to be lectured by you, Julian said suddenly, finding a trace of his old character. If you came to kick us out, do it. But do not pretend this gives you any kind of moral superiority. Moral superiority? I laughed humorlessly. No, Julian. I have no moral superiority. I just have something you no longer have. I have the power. I have the keys. I have the documents with my name on them. I took out the folder I carried under my arm and placed it on the dirty table. These are the property papers. As you can see, the apartment is registered in the name of Eleanor Vance. I am the legal owner of this property. Kate approached the table with trembling steps and opened the folder. She read the documents with glassy eyes. Mom, please, she whispered. Do not do this to us. We are your family. Family. The word left my mouth with more venom than I intended. You kicked me out on the street at 70 years old, and now you talk to me about family. It was a mistake, sobbed Kate. It was the worst mistake of my life. I have lived with the guilt every day. Every night I think of you crying on that sidewalk. Every time I pass by there, I stop and remember. Mom, please forgive me. For the first time since I entered, I felt something break inside me. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. A crack in the armor of coldness I had built. Kate, look at me, I said more softly. She looked up, her face ravaged by crying. Where were you that day? When Julian packed my things and put me on the street, where were you? I was there, she whispered. Exactly, you were there, and you said nothing. You did nothing. You sat on that sofa while your mother begged for a place to sleep. I was afraid, she admitted between sobs. I was afraid of Julian. I was afraid of losing my marriage. I was afraid of being alone. I was a coward, Mom. I was a terrible daughter. I know. Julian took a step forward, his face reddening. Wait a moment. Now it turns out, everything is my fault. Kate agreed with the decision. She also wanted you to leave. That is not true, screamed Kate, turning toward him. You pressured me. You said if I was not on your side, then I was against you. You forced me to choose. No one forced you to do anything. You were always an adult capable of making your own decisions. I watched them fight as if I were not there. I watched years of resentment and guilt come to the surface. I watched their marriage disintegrate before my eyes, and I realized something important. They were already destroyed. They had already lost everything. Life had already charged them for their cruelty in ways I could never equal. Enough, I said with a firm voice. Both fell silent and looked at me. I did not come here to witness your couple's therapy. I sat on the stained sofa, not caring about the dirt. I needed to sit for what was coming. You have 30 days to vacate the apartment, just as the bank notice says. That is not going to change. This apartment is mine now, and I am going to live here. I saw renewed panic in Kate's eyes. But I continued, raising a hand to silence her. I am not going to leave you on the street. Not because you deserve it, but because I am not like you. I took an envelope out of my purse. Here is $2,000 in cash. It is enough to pay the deposit and the first month's rent on a modest apartment. Barbara, my friend, knows of some places available that are within what you can afford with Kate's current salary. I put the envelope on the table. Neither of them moved to take it. I also spoke with Benjamin, my lawyer. He knows someone who might have a job for you, Julian. It is nothing glamorous. It is warehouse work, loading and unloading. It pays $11 an hour. If you are interested, the interview is Monday at 9 in the morning. I took out a business card and put it next to the envelope. That is all I am going to do for you. The rest depends completely on you. Why? Julian asked with a hoarse voice. Why help us after everything? I am not doing it for you, I answered honestly. I am doing it for me. I am doing it because I want to be able to sleep at night. I am doing it because I do not want to become the kind of person you were to me. I got up from the sofa and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned one last time. Kate, if one day you want to try to rebuild some kind of relationship with me, you will have to do it as an independent adult, not as a needy daughter looking for a rescue. You will have to come to me with something more than apologies and tears. You will have to come with real changes, with actions, not just with words. Mom, 30 days, I repeated firmly. And after that, I want this apartment completely empty and clean. If you leave any damage, I will sue you for repair costs. Understood. Both nodded in silence. I left the apartment and closed the door behind me. My legs were shaking so much, I had to lean against the hallway wall for a moment. My heart was beating frantically, my hands were sweating. But I had done it. I had faced it, and I had maintained my dignity in the process. I went down the stairs slowly. When I left the building, the sun was shining outside. I breathed the fresh air deeply. Barbara was waiting for me on the corner, as we had agreed. How do you feel? She asked me. Empty, I admitted, but also relieved, like I closed a door that had been open for too long. Did you give them the money? Yes. You are too good, Eleanor. I am not good. I am just tired of carrying hate. The following 30 days were strange. I knew Kate and Julian were still in the apartment packing their things, looking for a new place, preparing to leave, but I did not return during that time. I did not want to witness their moving process. I did not want more confrontations. Instead, I used those days to plan, to imagine what the apartment would be like once it was truly mine. Benjamin helped me find an honest contractor who gave me estimates for the necessary repairs. It needed new paint, fixing the moisture in the walls, changing some outlets, repairing the bathroom floor. It was going to cost another $3,000. But it was worth it. That apartment was going to be my home, my sanctuary, the physical symbol of my rebirth. Chloe came to visit me almost every day during those weeks. She brought decorating magazines, and we spent hours planning how each room would look. Grandma, you should put your floral arrangement workshop in the second bedroom. It has good natural light. That is an excellent idea, honey. And you know what else? When I finished the semester, I could move in with you, share expenses, help you with the business. My heart filled with warmth at the idea. You would really want to do that. Grandma, I have been living in that horrible student dorm for 2 years. Of course I want to live with you. Besides, someone has to make sure you eat well and do not work too hard. I laughed for the first time in weeks, a genuine laugh full of joy. And your parents? What will they say? Chloe shrugged. Let them say what they want. I am an adult now. I can make my own decisions. And my decision is to be with the person who has always loved me unconditionally. Day 29 arrived with a call I did not expect. It was Kate. Mom, tomorrow is the last day. We have finished packing. We found a small apartment a few miles from here. Julian got the job at the warehouse. I wanted to ask you if you could come tomorrow to inspect the apartment, to make sure everything is how you want it. Her voice sounded tired, defeated, but there was also something different in it, something more mature. I will be there at 3 in the afternoon, I replied. Thank you, Mom. And there is something else I need to tell you. Something important. What is it? I prefer to say it in person, if you do not mind. We hung up and I spent the rest of the day restless. What would she want to tell me? Had she changed her mind about leaving? Would she try to beg me one more time? The next day I arrived at the apartment exactly at 3. I rang the doorbell, and this time it was Kate who opened the door. She looked different. Thinner, with deep dark circles, but also with something in her eyes I had not seen in years. She seemed more present, more aware. "Come in, Mom." The apartment was empty. Completely empty. The furniture was gone. The walls were bare. The floor had been swept and mopped. It smelled of floor cleaner. "We did the best we could to leave it clean," Kate said quietly. "I know there are some stains on the walls we could not remove. If you want to deduct it from the $2,000 you gave us, I will understand." I walked through the empty rooms. I checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedrooms. They had done a decent job. It was not perfect, but it was clear they had made a real effort. "It is fine," I said finally. "It is acceptable." Kate let out a sigh of relief. "Thank you." We stood there in the empty living room, the heavy silence between us. "What did you want to tell me?" I asked finally. Kate took a deep breath and sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. After a moment, I did the same, sitting across from her. "Mom, these 30 days have been the hardest of my life, but they have also been the most revealing. Julian and I have talked a lot. We have fought a lot too. And finally we have been honest with each other for the first time in years." She wiped away a tear that was beginning to form. "We are going to separate. Officially. Not immediately because neither of us can afford to live alone right now, but emotionally, our marriage ended. I think it ended a long time ago, but neither of us wanted to admit it. I did not know what to say, so I simply waited for her to continue. My whole adult life I have been Julian's wife. I have let him make the decisions. I have sacrificed my own opinions, my own desires, to keep the peace, including sacrificing you." Her voice broke. "Mom, I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not expect that one day we will go back to being what we were. I know I destroyed that, but I need you to know that I finally understood. I understood that I was a coward. I understood that I chose a mediocre marriage over my own mother, and I understood that I deserved to live with that guilt for the rest of my life." "Kate, no, please, let me finish. I need to say this." I nodded. "I am going to work on myself. I am going to go to therapy. I already made the first appointment. I am going to learn to be strong, to have my own voice, not to need a man's approval to feel valuable. And one day, when I am a better person, if you wanted to give me a chance, I would like to try to get to know you again. Not as your dependent daughter, but as an adult woman who respects and admires another adult woman." Tears flowed freely down her face now. "And I want you to know that seeing you arrive here as the owner of the apartment, seeing you so strong and so dignified after everything we put you through, was the most powerful lesson I have received in my life. You showed me what it means to be truly strong. It is not about yelling or dominating. It is about getting up when you are knocked down. It is about rebuilding yourself with your own hands. It is about maintaining your humanity, even when others treat you without humanity." I felt my own tears beginning to form. "You showed me what real dignity looks like, Mom. And I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be even half as strong as you." I got up from the floor and walked toward the window. I needed a moment to process all of this. "Kate, I am not going to lie to you and tell you everything is fine. It is not fine. You hurt me in a way that is going to take a long time to heal. Maybe it never heals completely. I know. But I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate that you are not trying to minimize what you did or look for excuses. And I appreciate that you are taking real responsibility." I turned to look at her. "So I will tell you this. The door is not open. But it is not locked either. If you really do the work, if you really change, if you really become the woman you say you want to be, then maybe, someday, we can have some kind of relationship. But it will be on my terms. And only when I am ready." Kate felt more tears falling. "It is more than I deserve." "Thank you, Mom." She got up and took something out of her pocket. It was an envelope. "These are the keys to the apartment. All copies. And here is a paper with the Wi-Fi passwords and the utility account numbers in case you need them to make the changes." I took the envelope. "There is also something else in there. It is a letter I wrote. You do not have to read it now if you do not want to. But someday, if you can, I would like you to read it. Okay." We stood there a moment longer. "Where is Julian?" I asked. "He went to drop off the last boxes at the new apartment. I asked him to let me talk to you alone. He also wanted to apologize, But I told him it was not the time, that he needed to work on himself first. I nodded with approval. It was a wise decision. Kate walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. I love you, Mom. I have always loved you. Even when I did not know how to show it, even when I failed you in the worst way possible, I know I replied softly, and I love you too, Kate. That is why it hurts so much. She nodded, wiped her tears one last time, and left. I stood alone in the empty apartment, completely alone for the first time in that space that had been so many different things to me. First a home, then a prison, then the scene of my greatest humiliation, and now, finally, my quiet victory. I walked through every room slowly. I touched the walls. I looked out the windows. I stood in the exact spot where that sofa had sat, where Kate stayed silent while they kicked me out. And then I cried. I cried for everything I had lost. I cried for the years I would never get back. I cried for the mother-daughter relationship that had broken and perhaps would never be completely repaired. But I also cried with relief. I cried because I had survived. I cried because I had rebuilt myself. I cried because I had proven, first to myself and then to the world, that I was stronger than anyone had imagined. When I finally stopped crying, I took out my phone and called Barbara. It is official. The apartment is mine, and it is empty. Can you come celebrate with me? I will be there in 20 minutes with a bottle of wine and some food. Barbara arrived exactly 20 minutes later with Chloe, Benjamin, and Sarah. Among them, they had brought food, drinks, music, on a small portable speaker, even a blanket to sit on the floor. We had an impromptu picnic in my empty living room. A toast, said Benjamin, raising his plastic cup. To Eleanor, the bravest woman I know. To Grandma, added Chloe with shining eyes, for teaching me that it is never too late to start over. To my friend, said Barbara, for proving that kindness and strength can exist in the same person. To my best client turned inspiration, toasted Sarah. We all drank and laughed. We shared stories. We made plans for the apartment renovation. Chloe showed me photos of curtains she had seen on the internet. Benjamin offered to help me with any legal issues that arose. Sarah said she would get me more corporate contracts. That night, after everyone left, I stayed alone in the apartment. I lay on the blanket in the middle of the empty living room and looked at the ceiling. 72 years old. I had lived 72 years, and these last two had been the hardest and also the most transformative. I had learned that family is not always the one you got by blood. Sometimes it is the one you choose to build. Barbara, Benjamin, Sarah, and above all Chloe, they would be my true family now. I had learned that it is never too late to start over. That 70 years does not mean your life is over. It means you have 70 years of experience to use in your next chapter. I had learned that revenge does not need to be cruel to be effective. Sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving, flourishing, proving they didn't destroy you. 3 months later, the apartment was completely renovated. The walls painted a soft cream color. New floors. Simple but comfortable furniture. The second bedroom converted into my floral arrangement workshop with a large table, shelves for materials, and natural light coming through the window. Chloe had moved in with me just as she promised. We shared expenses and responsibilities. We cooked together. We laughed together. At night, we sat on the balcony where I was once forbidden to hang my clothes, drinking tea and talking about everything and nothing. My business kept growing. I had hired a younger woman to help me with big jobs. I was training her, passing on my knowledge. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after recovering the apartment, someone rang the doorbell. Chloe went to answer. "Grandma, it is Mom." My heart raced. I hadn't seen Kate since the day she handed me the keys. "Do you want me to tell her to leave?" asked Chloe. "No. Let her in." Kate entered shyly. She looked different again. Thinner but also healthier. She wore her hair short, a style she had never worn before. She was dressed in simple but clean clothes. "Hi, Mom." "Hi." "Chloe." "Hi," Mom replied Chloe cautiously. "Do you want to sit down?" I offered, pointing to the sofa. "Thank you." The three of us sat down. The silence was awkward but not hostile. I have been going to therapy. Kate began twice a week for these 6 months. I also joined a support group for women leaving codependent relationships. I am glad to hear that, I said honestly. Julian and I divorced officially last month. It was amicable. We both understood it was for the best. He is still working at the warehouse. I got a better job as an administrator at a dental clinic. It doesn't pay much yet, but it has benefits and room to grow. I nodded, listening. I am living in a shared apartment with 2 other women. It is small, but it is mine. I pay my own bills. I make my own decisions. And for the first time in my adult life, I am getting to know myself. Who am I without a man defining me? She took an envelope out of her purse. Here is $500. I know it is not much compared to everything I owe you, but it is the first payment. I want to pay back the $2,000 you gave us. Not because you have to ask for it, but because it is the right thing to do. I am going to pay you $500 every 2 months until the debt is cleared. I took the envelope but did not open it. Kate, I do not need you to return that money. I know, but I need to return it. For my own sanity. For my own sense of responsibility. I really looked at her for the first time in months. I saw the effort in her eyes. I saw the exhaustion of someone who was working hard on herself. I saw my daughter finally becoming the woman I always hoped she would be. Do you want to stay for dinner? I asked softly. Her eyes filled with tears. Really? Chloe is making lasagna. She always makes too much food anyway. Chloe smiled. It is true, and it is coming out delicious. The 3 of us had dinner together that night. The conversation was careful at first, full of pauses and awkward moments, but little by little it became more natural. We talked about Kate's work, about Chloe's studies, about my latest decorating contracts. We did not talk about the past. Not yet. That would come with time. When Kate left that night, she hugged me at the door. Thank you, Mom, for giving me a chance. It is just a dinner, Kate. It is not complete forgiveness. It is not a clean slate. I know. But it is a start. And that is more than I deserve. After she left, Chloe and I cleaned the kitchen together. Are you okay, Grandma? Yes, honey. I am fine. Do you think one day you will be able to be like before? No, I replied honestly. We will never be like before. But maybe we can be something different. Something new. Something built on more honest foundations. That night, lying in my bed in my apartment, in my home that I had recovered with my own effort, I thought about the whole journey. I had started as a broken woman, sitting on a sidewalk with 3 suitcases and a shattered heart. I had rebuilt myself into an independent businesswoman with her own workshop, her own income, her own dignity. I had recovered not only an apartment, but my sense of self-worth, my strength, my voice. And now, maybe, I was starting to recover my daughter too. Not the daughter I lost. That one would never return, but a new version, an adult, responsible, aware version. Would it be enough? Would it completely heal the damage that had been done? Probably not. But it was a start. And beginnings, as I had learned in these 2 years, are powerful. They are proof that no matter how low you fall, you can always get up. You can always start over. You can always rebuild. I closed my eyes and fell asleep in peace, knowing I had done the right thing. Not the easiest thing, not the most vengeful thing, but the right thing. And that, finally, was enough.